Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by my Action Network co-host, Duck. Duck, it's just a two-man game in today's episode. Christian's going to be out for the next few weeks. We're going to have Tanner McGrath hitting us up as our sub. He's going to essentially be running point in the next episode. Love having Tanner in there. No one knows more about X's and O's. Really, I mean, anyone I've ever met. The guy did a breakdown 2 years ago of, Hurley's offense with UConn. It's still something that is worth your time if you want to understand half-court sets, kind of get inside of the whiteboard, understand what makes teams so good in the half-court. Tanner is all over it. He did a great job earlier this year during Feast Week, being our point guard, setting us up for picks. So he's going to be back next episode. And then before you know it, Christian will be back in the fold. But for today's episode, it's a little two-man game, a little Stockton and Malone. I'm going to start there for you. Did you ever play NBA Jam? Was that something on, the arcade console that you played, the cabinet, or maybe you had it on Sega? Was that something that was a part of your childhood?
He's eating up. Yeah, I played NBA Jam on Super Nintendo.
All right. What was your team back then?
The Sonics.
Yeah, I mean,
Sonics. Shrimp.
Sonics are a great answer. You got the glove, you got the Rain Man, you got Detlef. I mean, just excellent shooting.
John Kemp,
yeah. Kemp was just absolutely ridiculous in that game. Just from a '90s nostalgia factor, I love the Charlotte Hornets because you could go Bogues for the speed with Mourning or LJ, or go with the big man lineup, LJ and Zoe, and they both could get to the 10 anytime they wanted, just elevating, dunking over people. I hope that Gen Z behind us doesn't lose out on, NBA Jam. I know there's like kind of a nostalgia wave for a little bit, and there's still bars basically in every major city that have like that video game elements, arcade bar, barcade in New York City. It's still just an incredible product. I think that should live on absolutely forever. But that being said, you went with Seattle, I went with Charlotte. It's a two-man game in this episode, so we're going to hop in with our looks, high level, on the sport, a little bit of our rants, and then we're going to get into our best bets for the weekend. We're going to give out picks for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with some look-ahead lines, with some lines that are based on projections. I know it's not the most ideal, but we want to give you things that are actionable, try to give you a window in terms of a spread or a total that we're looking at. As I've said earlier in the season, the beginning of the year, projections not really worth a damn, to be honest, even when you're looking at Torvik, Evan, Mia, KenPom. But the later we get into the season, the more those numbers get refined, the closer they are within 1.5 points, 2 points, on both the total and the sides. I've seen this kind of tighten up, particularly in conference season as well. I think these projections are pretty sharp. So we're giving out numbers that you're going to be able to play. That being said, let's get started with your high-level take here before we get into our picks.
Well, it's a team that we talked about that had gone through some transition earlier in the season, but I've been really impressed with Texas Tech about the last 4 or 5 games. And when I looked this morning at the futures market, the Red Raiders are 35-1 to win it all. Just seems a little bit steep. These guys went toe-to-toe with Houston. They've already defeated Duke. And it's just a team that could go on a deep run here the second half of the conference schedule. Maybe they pick off Houston again, or Arizona or Iowa State down the stretch, and they're able to maintain their position as a projected 4 seed. I think we could be looking at a group. I mean, you get into a one-and-done scenario, and you get Grant McCasland and that defense some time to really hone in on the first 2 opponents that they have to play. I won't be surprised at all if these guys get to the second weekend. JT Toppin is still a force. You've got Christian Anderson, Watts, Atwell. These guys, they're healthy for the most part. They're maybe just flying a little under the radar respective to the rest of the major players in the futures market. And I just feel like this is a team that should not be forgotten. They probably not the best team in college basketball, but at 35-1, you get them into the one and done situations as a 4. Possibly take a little bit to get them to the 3 line, but as a 4, if they get into the right matchups, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Texas Tech is one of those teams that we're talking about, even into the Elite 8 sort of category. So I'm going to be pushing across a future here on Texas Tech. That's not anything to take away from our Houston future that we talked about a couple of weeks back, as I love what the Cougars are doing. They're probably my favorite team to watch in college hoops. But I just feel like this one here is a little bit long for pricing. And so I'm going to be diving in here with Texas Tech.
I think the Big 12, this is one of those years you can go back to the 90s with the ACC being so deep, all the great years of Big East basketball. You could be the 4th or 5th best team in the Big 12 and win the national championship. That would not blow me away at all, because on a given night, the like high end offensive talent, and specifically what Texas Tech has faced this year, I think prepares them for a deeper run in March. We've talked about this defense taking a step back. It was a little bit surprising earlier in the year because, this coaching staff, their calling card has been defense year over year. They face the number 2 power rated offensive strength of schedule in the entire country. So I think, when you look at what they've done just in recent history against BYU, against Baylor, they thumped both of those teams. Those teams can heat you up and score 90 points in the blink of an eye, and they were able to limit them for 40 minutes. And I agree, JT Toppin is playing like a conference player of the year. It's just that the Big 12 is so deep. There's superstars all over the place. I think Texas Tech is getting lost in the shuffle here. 35-1 is a great number, and if they continue this hot streak, that number is not going to last long. I could see them entering the tournament closer to a 20-1 play. And a lot of it is just the luck of the draw, as you mentioned. Selection Sunday comes out. If they are in a nice situation in terms of getting to the second weekend against a 1 seed that they want to play out of the 4 line, then all of a sudden they look a lot more attractive. So it's a bit random in terms of the luck, in terms of your path, but it's all about price, So you play prices, you don't play teams. And at 35-1, I think people would be making a big mistake not adding that to their portfolio. All right, in terms of my rants, or my high-level look, I should say, Duck, we did it. You, me, Christian, we said it for, a month? Rank St. Louis, rank Miami of Ohio. We absolutely dunked on all the AP voters who had their head up their behinds and were ranking teams at, power conferences with 5 or 6 losses already. They finally took the bait. They went ahead. They said, all right, we're just going to put them in the back of the rankings, 24, 25, give it to the Billikens, give it to the Red Hawks. We did it. So mission accomplished, going to fly the flag. And I'm always nervous, by the way, of these teams finally breaking through and then immediately losing. I played, it was like a 3-leg money line parlay last night between, I think it was Michigan State, Iowa State, and SLU. SLU, they gave me some pause against Duquesne. They end up pulling it out of the fire, winning by 4, but a win's a win. They continue on. And then Miami of Ohio, that was one of their last major hurdles of the entire season. That scene at Kent, by the way, the fact that it was on ESPN Plus was absolutely criminal. That game should have been on national television. It would have been an incredible showcase. The place was packed for a midweek game. The atmosphere was electric. A huge comeback by Kent. Then Miami, Ohio in the final 90 seconds, getting into overtime. An incredible shot, bank shot to get into OT. I'm just super impressed with MAC basketball this year. When you look at Kent, even Buffalo for that matter, and then obviously the top 2 teams in Akron and Miami of Ohio, it's going to be a phenomenal conference tournament in Cleveland in March. So really a mid-major league to get very excited about. But I'm just happy for us that we're the G5 guys for football. We're certainly the low and mid-major guys for basketball. We want to see these guys get their flowers. And people who complain, stick a sock in it. Who cares what you think in terms of, these teams with their schedule? Yeah, everyone knows Miami of Ohio's schedule sucks. No one's ducking that. No one's hiding. They need to win basically every game to stay in the top 25. And I think for their at-large hopes, they probably can drop 1, maybe 2, if it's the right kind of loss. If they lose to Bowling Green, if maybe they lose a game to Akron in the conference tournament, I still think they'll get in. But I think that's the right threshold. You should have to win that many games when you have a schedule deep in the 300s in terms of strength of schedule. And then for SLU, I think the A10 is just a better league this year. What are your thoughts on the A10's overall depth? I think there's a lot of teams that can play. I think it would be a mistake by the committee if we don't get 2 or 3 teams out of this league. Obviously, a big part of it is conference tournaments, variance, and who makes it to the championship game, who gets the automatic berth, et cetera, et cetera. But I think this is a really good league. There's some very good guard play and kind of a variety of basketball being played there in the Atlantic 10.
I think the Atlantic 10 is very deep. You've got teams that are not being talked about and probably shouldn't be, like George Washington, Davidson, St. Joe's, even VCU. But the top 3, Dayton, and when Dayton gets healthy, we'll see them go on a stretch where they put together the wins. St. Louis, George Mason, and I'm telling you right now, that last game of the season between the Patriots and Billikens is going to be must-watch television and will probably be pretty critically important for both those teams to decide who gets the 1 in the A10. But absolutely, it's a 2-bid league. Absolutely, George Mason and St. Louis belong in the NCAA tournament. I mean, we don't need another 17 and 15 SEC team to take the position of one of these 2 teams. I think the A10 is deep. I think there's a lot of good basketball. I think we'll see that play out down the stretch. And it's just interesting how the schedule concludes with those top 2 teams squaring off for the only time this season in A10 play.
Kellen Thames, by the way, shout out to Jim Roots, a part of our BBOC family, the three-man weave. A sixth man having, I think he threw out, was it 6 or 7 game MVPs this year? Let me check this. 7 MVPs off the bench. You rarely see that at the mid-major level. You generally want to start your best players, but it gives them the kind of consistency where they don't go through those scoring lulls, and having someone that impactful, not only able to score, but to impact the game on the glass and defensively really makes the Billikens special. Anyone who hasn't watched them play yet this year, you're missing out on a special brand of basketball. All right, let's transition now to any rants, anything you want to get off of your chest. I know that sometimes a big part of this is bad breaks. You've listed off how many games that you've nailed the first half under and then just scoring bonanza in the second half. Let's put that aside for a moment. Anything else that you want to talk about before we get into best bets?
Well, that's just part of the variance too of college basketball. It is the most volatile sport in America, in my opinion. It's just sometimes the slate is filled with those landmines, and you can have a total pegged perfectly for 35 or 38 minutes, and then you get some goofy stuff, and it's all it takes to ruin it. But I wonder, is it time for Vandy to hit the panic button? The losers of 3 straight. They've got 2 remaining games yet against Kentucky and Tennessee. They've got roadies against Mizzou, Ole Miss, Auburn. And there's just been some recent struggles on the road the last couple of outings. The shooting output has been diminished on the road. And I still think this is a good team, a dangerous team, but we've seen a little bit of a slide from Vandy. In my opinion, their next game on the road against Mississippi State on Saturday will be a huge indicator for where the doors are going the rest of this season. So I'm interested to hear your take on what the heck is going on with Vandy the last 2 weeks.
I think for a bit they were a bit overrated. Not that I don't think that they're a quality team with incredible guard play and the coaching staff, everything, in terms of him being a national story, I think was deserved. But I think the market overcorrected a little bit. And now the question is, how much does it slide in the opposite direction where people want to fade them, the recency bias of multiple losses? They're on the road, I believe, at Mississippi State on Saturday. Not the easiest place to win. The projections right now are, the doors laying 9. I don't want to lay 9 with this team at this moment. When you look at their shooting splits home and away, they go down by about 3% in terms of effective field goal percentage on the road. Do they stop living and dying with the 3? Can they get a little bit more consistent? They killed themselves with a slow start against Arkansas. That's a team athletically, that you don't want to dig yourself a deep hole early, and they did just that. So early success, I think, is a big part psychologically for them. But this is a team that this isn't a buy or sell for me. This is a hold right now. I just need to see what it looks like to kind of right the ship. But this is kind of the part of gambling where you have to trust your numbers. You have to trust your evaluation of a team overall. I know that Christian was very high on this team early. He rode that wave. We're going to go ahead and track his bets in the Action Network app as well. He's someone to follow. He's had his finger on the pulse of Vandy this entire season. So I'll probably just, in some cases, we have different people here at the network who have specialties in different conferences, different teams. If he's in on them, I'm going to ride with him. If not, I'm just going to do a wait and see situation, because if they beat Mississippi State by double digits, quality win, game control, all those things going in their favor, I think it kind of takes the panic out of the situation. But they're right on the verge of things slipping away. And because the SEC is so deep and there's so many elite teams, 1 through 4 on the lines right now, if you start to take, 4 or 5 losses in a month, you can slide down that seed line really, really fast. So things could get hairy for the doors. That's just my overall take on it. I'm kind of, piggybacking on this in terms of my rants for this week. And it's that X's and O's coaches, I think, are a dying breed in college basketball. I mean, you can look at a conference like the Big Ten that's chock full of them, whether it's Painter, Izzo, McCollum now at Iowa, guys that can clearly, whiteboard up something out of timeouts, half court basketball. They can be coaches that put together a game plan and then have counter punches to anything that anyone does defensively. But there's so many coaches in Division I basketball that just have a style of play, and they just want to dial that up, whether it's they want to run, they want to go tempo, they want to fire up 30 triples, they want to crash the glass. And if those things aren't going in their favor, they kind of just throw up the shrug emoji and they don't know exactly what to do. And I think it's one of the reasons Christian brought this up on the last show, that it's so difficult to win on the road, because a lot of these teams, if threes aren't falling, they don't know how to manufacture points in the half court. If they, the tempo kind of battle, there's certain games where you can take a slow team out of their comfort zone. That's great. What if you're playing another team that's happy to play quickly? These are the kind of things that I think come up time and time again. And as we inch closer to March, this is kind of the way that I start to think about teams that I want to back, because as we know, NCAA tournament, it's guard driven. It's also a tournament where a lot more games are played in the half court. There's more reviews. There's more stoppages. Can you be efficient out of timeouts? Can you be efficient in the half court? And also, you add into the fact, from a three-point perspective, we've seen it multiple times. The NCAA quite literally rolls out different basketballs, and instead of shooting 40% from three, you're shooting 22% from three. Can you survive a night like that? So when I dig into some of the advanced stats, and a shout out to Tanner for pulling these numbers for me, I'm looking at half-court master executors from a head coaching perspective and out of timeouts. When you look at low and mid majors right now, Liberty, Miami of Ohio, Yale, Akron, all top 10 in the half court. The big boys, Vandy, Purdue, Duke, Michigan, all incredible from a points per possession perspective. And out of timeouts, mid and low majors, Miami again, Belmont, Murray, Idaho, and then big boys like Ohio State, Georgetown, Purdue, and the Zags, all of them really good out of timeout. So it's little surprise that Miami of Ohio has been so good on the road this year. Same with Duke, same with Akron. They've been ATMs there. These are teams that they don't necessarily need that home cooking, that familiarity with your home court, the dimensions, playing in larger arenas, all those things that can impact perimeter shooting. They're fine because they're running actual sets and they have coaches that can basically squeeze out some offensive efficiency on nights when things aren't always going their way. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, generally speaking, it's already baked into the lines in terms of teams playing on the road. I'm actually going to back a team in your home state that is going on the road on Thursday night. A big part of it is you're getting these huge discounts because odds makers are saying these teams are just not going to shoot well on the road. And a lot of them really don't have any other recourse. They're playing through 2 or 3 offensive players and they're just hoping for 10 or 15 threes. What are your thoughts on, kind of backing coaches as we get deeper into the season as opposed to backing some of these offensive stats?
Well, I think it's the prudent play. Remember, there was a time in college basketball where coaches were adamant about getting into the bonus early and getting players into foul trouble, designing the offense about getting a certain amount of paint touches. And if we can do some of these certain things and stress the opponent's bigs, we're going to have a chance to win the game late. And you saw some of that X's and O's coaching really play out in game. Now you've got the positionless basketball free flowing. The rules have been legislated to create more freedom of movement, and they want guys getting up and down the floor and shooting threes early in the possession or getting to the rim, right? It's a rim and three type of game that we're watching now. I think you still have a group of coaches that really dive into the granular and really try to put their teams in positions where on a night-to-night basis, they can really put some of that stress on their opponents. And I think that is, especially as we get into conference championship settings, that will really see some fruit for those teams that are able to scheme it up out of timeouts, great inbound plays, out of half. You get these sort of situations where you can create momentum, because basketball's such a game of runs, and there are these little mini runs that these teams go on up and down, and at the end of it, you got a 2-minute stretch at the end where how many runs did we go on? How many runs did we prevent? Where are we at or time and score? And how's our team going to perform in the last 2 minutes? And so I think that sort of coaching style is one that is dying, but I like to hone in on that, especially come conference championship season.
Now, before we get into our best bets, just a quick reminder, if you want to get the best bets at the best prices, you have to sign up for Action Pro. Action Pro users get real-time alerts as soon as experts like Duck, Stuckey, myself track picks in the app. You're also going to get real-time money percentages to see where the smart money is flowing and access to NFL player prop projections from Sean Kerner and his predictive analytics team. Soon, Dr. Nick, by the way, is going to start upping the volume of his college basketball player props as well. So you're going to want to take advantage of that with Action Pro. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro to get started and use promo code POD20 for $20 off an annual subscription. That's promo code POD20 for $20 off over at actionnetwork.com/pro. Now it's time for the best bets. We're going to go through Thursday, Friday, Saturday slate. We got picks across the board. We're going to start on Thursday, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I know it's not your first pick on Thursday, but we talked off air about Sacramento State, and I also talked about Idaho, one of those teams that's really good out of timeouts. They can be a team to rely upon to have exquisite, to use a phrase of yours, coaching in those situational moments and be able to really hurt people from a points per possession situation out of timeouts. This is a rare over for you. You like the Hornets and the Vandals to go over, what, 158? What's the threshold? How high would you go for the over here?
Yeah, it's projected about 157, 158. I think we're good all the way to 161 here. Sacramento State has really started to figure out their offense a little bit here in back-to-back wins over Northern Arizona and Northern Colorado. Starting to just turn the corner a bit here with what Mike Bibby wants to do offensively. The defense is still atrocious, and they've been shredded routinely on the road. Should be a spot here where Idaho can capitalize and score 90 at home. They did that against North Dakota, Eastern Washington, Montana State, and some school called Evergreen State. But you look at Colton Mitchell, Jackson Rasmussen, Biko Johnson, they're all viable options for the Vandals who they don't play with a ton of pace, but they will run when the opportunity presents itself, and they'll be able to run with Sacramento State here. Both these teams get to the line a ton, and both of these defenses foul often. I project that there could be up to 70 combined foul shots attempted in this one. And this is a game that I project closer to 80 possessions than what many of the others have, 71, 72. You're going to want to play over here in this one. I think we'll see both these teams in the 80s.
Prophet Johnson for Sacramento State is an absolute menace and a rarity in that he can go for 30 points without shooting 10 three-pointers. He's somebody that, just as you pointed out, he gets a lot of steals, he gets transition buckets, and he gets to the line. So I like that look a lot. Now let's get back to your bread and butter. It's a quick detour with an over. Let's hit it under. Let's go to the Sun Belt, South Alabama, and James Madison.
Yeah, let's look at that one. And the projected total is 142 and a half or thereabouts. I think we're good all the way to 139 and a half. South Alabama plays at the 326th fastest tempo in college basketball. That's slow. They're 249th in three-point shooting, and they're really not equipped with elite scorers, even at the Sun Belt level. Chaz Harris and Adam Olson are really the go-to guys. But with Peyton Law out of the fold, it's really thrown a little bit of a wrench into their offensive game plan. Beyond that, despite some recent high-scoring games against Arkansas State and Georgia Southern, Richie Riley and the Jaguars bunch do not want to run. They want to play slow. I'm talking like 58 to 62 possessions type of slow. The defense has been near the top of the conference in contesting shots, forcing turnovers, and these guys are number one or number two, depending on whose metrics you look at, best in the country at defending without fouling. It's going to be tough for JMU to really get a lot going offensively, in my opinion. The Duke's offense has been serviceable, but they were slowed against Appy State, Old Dominion, and they played Marshall to a game that finished 62 total possessions. You look at shooting threes, penetrating the lane, it's all going to be much more difficult against South Alabama. This is, in my opinion, a dead nut under game.
Yeah, when you look at what South Alabama can do defensively, and I'm just pulling up their defensive stats, there's a team that can pressure you into some turnovers, and sometimes that can be a double-edged sword in terms of runouts and getting some easy looks. But what's interesting is James Madison, in terms of passes that go out of bounds, not leading to runouts, they're outside of the top 250 in the entire country. So there's a lot of situations where it's a dead ball, it's a bad pass, it's an offensive foul going the other way.
Shot clock violation.
Shot clock violation. These are really good opportunities to aid in and under, and just some stats that you should consider over there at KenPom. All right, I'm going to focus in on a Thursday play. I mentioned it in your home state, at least a home state team. They're traveling. UNC Wilmington, they're going to be a slight dog at William and Mary, and there's a huge tempo discrepancy. The Seahawks 314th in the country in terms of their preferred tempo. The Tribe 5th in the entire nation. And you know what's interesting? When we talk a lot about these mid and low major darlings, in a lot of cases, you start to list off all the things they do incredibly well. They're top 20 in this metric, they're top 50 in that. Well, Wilmington maybe 17-2, but if you just peruse their resume really quickly, you're going to come away unimpressed. Below average offensive numbers. They never turn you over. So, what exactly is there to get excited about? Here's the thing to get excited about when it comes to UNCW. They're tremendous in the half court defensively. They rarely turn it over, so you can't run on them. And they're one of the very best rebounding teams in mid-major basketball. Patrick Wessler is an anchor in that middle, but this team is big everywhere. They're eighth in height in all of Division One. It's so rare for a mid-major to have this kind of size and be able to use it efficiently. There's not just a bunch of duds and zombies in the front court for them. These guys are active. They box out. They make shots really difficult inside of the arc, and I think that's why it's difficult to beat them because they're playing that plotting style. And even though they have shooting, limitations, I think all that means is that I don't want to play them as a favorite. I want to play them as a dog. And that's been the wise choice throughout the season. They're 17-2 straight up, as I mentioned, yet they are 1-8-2 against the spread in their last 11 games, which is nuts. But in those 11 games, they've been favored in all of them. So now we get to flip it around. They get to catch points. Even if this goes off at a pick 'em, I like them. Because the other part of it is I'm looking for apples to apples. Is anyone else this quick in the CAA? And they just played an up-tempo team in Campbell. They erased a 4-point halftime deficit. They score 45 points in the second half, really rev up their offensive efficiency, win that game by 3. Greedy Williams, is starting to come on. Need probably 15 points from him here to feel comfortable about a win. Last piece, Bill and Mary, one of the most consistent mid-majors. I know what I'm getting with them, and what I'm getting is a team that has to play fast to win. Sometimes it's as simple when you have this huge discrepancy in tempo. If UNC Wilmington can slow this thing down, I think William and Mary is going to really struggle to get going offensively because they have 2 wins this entire season where they've scored fewer than 80 points, and those wins came against Stony Brook and UTEP, who both stink. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks here at plus money. I'm going to take them, plus the point and a half, also on the money line. Either way, I think that's a good play. Let's now switch over to Friday. Another game even further down the board. Going to look at Wagner at Lemoyne. Always exciting to give out a first team ever here on the BBOC show. Another Jesuit addition to D1 basketball. We're all the way up to 16 teams that can be eligible for March Madness, although Lemoyne's going to have to wait another year in transition. I still think an early season MTE needs to exist between all the Jesuit schools because I think it would be very fun. You got heavyweights like, the Zags, you got SLU, Santa Clara's no joke, Seattle now joining the WCC. They have a win already this season over Mark Few's team. So I think an early season MTE with all the Jesuit schools, there's 16. It's perfect for a bracket. I think it would be fun. All right, let's talk a little bit about Lemoyne if you don't know them. Another college in Syracuse, New York. They're nicknamed the Dolphins. I know when you're thinking upstate New York, you're, of course, thinking of Dolphins. They play small ball. They rely heavily on Shiloh Jackson. They build everything around them, both offensively and particularly defensively. He does all the work on the glass. He's averaging 14 and 8, 2.3 stocks per game. And defensively, what's interesting year over year, Nate Champion in the offseason said, we just got shredded defensively last year. So what can we do about it? We're going to pack it in. If you want to beat us on the perimeter, you can. We are just not giving up easy looks inside of 10 feet. And so far, that's working. They have a top 22-point percentage defense, but they're giving up lots of open threes. So teams that are comfortable shooting at volume from three-point range, they can go ahead and make them. Opponents of Lemoyne this year have made 9 triples per game on 38% shooting. This deep in the season, it's not just luck. It's the fact that they're not rotating. They're not getting out to shooters. They're not defending a three-point arc all that well. So if they're playing a team that wants to shoot a lot of them, I would be concerned. That is not Wagner. They are really good from deep from a percentage perspective, but they don't like to play that way. They barely take 23s per game, which is very low, and they prefer to play through Nick Jones, their guard, and they want him to attack the rim. I think that plays right into the Dolphins' hands in this one. And 2 more things to consider from Evan Mia. Lemoyne plays much better when they're playing against crappy teams. Whenever they have to play up, that's a struggle for them. When they're playing down among low and mid-major teams, they're 10th in the country in that ranking. They're also better against slower teams, and Wagner sometimes can play at a full-on crawl. So I'd lay up to 8 here. I'm hoping to get 6.5 from their projections. Any thoughts of the NEC in general? I know these are 2 teams that are not going to come, be dancing later this year. Lemoyne because of eligibility, and also Wagner's just not that good. But any thoughts here on this NEC matchup?
A little bit of a pace war. I think Lemoyne will be able to have an advantage over Wagner. Wagner's defense is just atrocious. They can't defend without fouling. They can't guard the three-point line. They can't really do much of anything to really stop their opponent. And I think it's interesting the schematics as well, right? You're going to pack it in on defense. You're going to force teams to shoot over the top. And Wagner has a good 3-point shooting percentage at 39% over the course of the season. They don't shoot a lot of threes. It's really not their game. And I think if they get into a situation where they have to shoot 33s, you're going to see that percentage go down because it's just really not their game. And you look at prior results for Lemoyne against teams like Niagara, Lafayette, Monmouth, Binghamton, teams that are real comparable with skill level to Wagner. I think this is probably one of those. You're going to look at this point spread and say, my gosh, why are they laying 6.5, 7? But I think it's the right play here. And it should be a fun game for those that have money on the line here, but I would only look Lemoyne's way in this one. I really like the CAA play that you had with Wilmington too. I think when you look at UNC Wilmington and their size and the players that they went out and got in the portal, and took some of the pieces away from fellow CAA members. They took a guy from Monmouth, they took a guy from Towson, but they can just make you struggle so badly on the offensive end. And William and Mary plays at a blazing fast tempo. But you know what else they do? They turn the ball over. They're sloppy. They get a lot of shots blocked. At times, William and Mary can play out of control. I think it's a good look on the Seahawks there.
One final piece on Lemoyne, by the way, if you just want to get excited by one player, name drop when you're out of the bar. Tennessee Rainwater has been a player who's all of a sudden, he's been a microwave for Lemoyne. 5 of the last 7 games, he's gone for double digits. I think he's somebody who could be the difference maker in this one. All right, let's go back to your plays. Turn to Friday night. Mercyhurst versus New Haven. I promise, listeners, do not turn off the podcast. I have a huge national game coming up next. But this one, Duck's real excited to get into it because this is stinky, this is ugly, and this is an under. Talk me through it.
And it's going to be a 1 p.m. Eastern tip, so you'll get a little afternoon basketball on Friday. Mercyhurst and New Haven. It is the most disgusting game on the slate. You talk about two teams that are absolute slow pace. They do not seek transition. It's going to be 100% half court setup with sloppy execution, turnovers, poor play. This is the game that you're going to want to look at. Mercyhurst is 365th nationally in adjusted offensive tempo. Mike, how many teams are there in college basketball?
365, is that right?
365, dead last. New Haven not far behind, 358th in operating tempo. Slow, slow, slow. Offensive efficiency, if you want to look at that, 336th offensively as far as offensive efficiency for Mercyhurst, 353rd for New Haven. New Haven is just not equipped at this level yet with the roster. They're a transition team that moved up. They're not a Division I roster. They don't have shooters. They don't have size in the post. They just don't have a lot of effective offensive play here. Neither one of these teams really does much well offensively. You're not going to see either one of these groups get to the line. They don't make free throws even when they do get to the line. It's bottom 300 level in slash shooting, 2-point, 3-point foul shooting for both. There's not going to be a lot to get excited about here, if I'm being honest with you. But with the projections having this one at 123.5 or so, this is a game that could see somewhere in the realm of 55 to 58 total possessions. And it could be one of those 21 to 19 games at the half. It's going to be gross. I would expect the winning team to likely not surpass 60 points. So anything over 120 here, and I'm going in on the under.
All right, that under is the shot. Here comes the chaser. Saturday, really the best game on the entire slate. Houston traveling to Lubbock to take on the Red Raiders. Red Raiders should be a short favorite, +1, 1.5. Money line's also good. If you can get, plus money, +105, that would be phenomenal. Listen, the Red Raiders have won 8 of 9, including a neutral site win over Duke. They thumped BYU and Baylor. Their lone loss, of course, in that stretch was a 4-point defeat to this very same Houston team at, their home place. Was it the Fertitta Center? They led with 3:30 to go. Flemings just took over. He went ballistic at the end of that game. They end up letting it slip away. I think these two teams are very close, and I respect the Red Raiders on their home floor. Under McCaslin, they're 40-5 straight up at the United Supermarkets Arena. They need a new nickname for that one. Top 15 in offensive efficiency, top 30 in defensive efficiency. This is about the time of year when people start tweeting out, the last 25 national champions have been, in this ranking window. That puts them in the conversation to have balance on both ends of the floor. They also have a pro player, at least one, in JT Toppin. He has played incredibly well. He has that confidence that the offense can run through him. He can get them really tough buckets. Last 3 games, 27 points per game, 10 rebounds, 3.5 stocks on 61% shooting. And when he went up against this Houston defense, who they can make a lot of people look foolish, they can get people off of their spots, taking bad shots on a nightly basis. He went for 18-11 with 5 blocks on 9 for 14 shooting from the floor. That kind of efficiency is why they built out a lead deep in the second half against this Cougar team. Anytime, though, you're playing Houston, it really comes down to can you limit turnovers. Samson's teams are fourth in turnover percentage in terms of forcing teams to give away the basketball. More than 20% of opponent possessions end in turnovers, which is just a bananas statistic, particularly when you consider the schedule that they played this year. Tech isn't perfect, but they're 42nd in rock protection. So I think at the end of the day, if goes off as a pick 'em, or certainly if you get any points, this is the right side here. I think Houston is a tremendous team. I already got my 17-1 for them to win the Natty, but this Texas Tech team is starting to ascend. They're starting to assert their dominance on the defensive end, as we talked about at the top. They had to put together a few pieces. I think they traded off some offensive efficiency for a little bit of half step backwards on the defensive end. But a big part of that was they've just been playing really good offensive teams for 3 straight months. And now when you look at the masterclass they put on tape against BYU, who can, make anyone look foolish on the offensive ends, they can score 90 points against just about anybody. They struggled to get into the mid 70s, and Baylor was absolutely out of their elements against Texas Tech. So in terms of a team playing their best basketball at this moment, the Big 12 is an absolute grind. Houston's not going to go 1 or 2 losses throughout this entire conference run. They're going to drop some games. This is a tough place to go and win. What are your thoughts on this matchup? I think this could be kind of an Elite Eight preview. That's the level of play we're going to see between these two teams on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's game of the day. We saw the first meeting, a 4-point contest, and I would expect this one to be absolutely super tight. You're going to have grinded out defensive possessions. You're going to have some turnovers. You're going to have physical play in the paint. And it's going to be must-watch television. I absolutely wouldn't miss it. And it's going to be a real fun. I think it'll have that sort of Elite Eight sort of magnitude or gravitas to the game. And I think that this is going to be a real good indicator for Texas Tech on what this team is truly capable of. If they can avenge the loss that they had a couple of weeks back and really keep this momentum going, that'll carry them through the rest of the season. Houston, they don't have to go undefeated in Big 12 play. If they lose a game or two and they finish the year with 29 wins and 3 losses, that's going to be an elite level campaign. You look at some of the teams, though, that Houston has played in recent, and it has not been the exquisite upper echelon Big 12. This is going to be a real test on the road. I think Texas Tech is absolutely going to bring their A game here. It's going to be fun television to watch.
A little quick pop quiz for you. In the Big 12 this year, which team has the most kill shot 10-0 runs go in their favor?
Well, I would guess it's Houston, and those runs generally start defensively, but maybe Arizona.
Arizona is number 3. Houston is number 1. And I bring that up because usually when you think about kill shot, it's like all of a sudden 4 possessions, bucket, 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 and then, all of a sudden you're behind the 8 ball. To your point, though, Houston's more like, we're going to put you in the deep freezer for 4 minutes and, have some empty possessions of our own, but we're going to get to that 10-0 run. I think in a game like this, there's also an opportunity because it's on Texas Tech's home floor. If they have a bit of an early lull and there's a live betting opportunity to catch them plus 4.5, 5.5, you got to pounce on it because Houston, as you brought up, their only bugaboo when Kingston Flemings is not being a flamethrower from deep and making contested shots, they can go through long stretches. And I think it's the only part of their makeup right now offensively that concerns me just the tiniest bit. It's the difference between them being an Elite Eight team and being a national champion. They have the pieces. When you look at the talent, Uzan, when you look at Sharp, Fleming's, it should be a team offensively that's not quite at, the Arizona or BYU kind of level, but they shouldn't be that far away because from a personnel standpoint, they shouldn't necessarily have those issues. I think there's a little bit of who's the alpha, who's controlling the situation. The deeper we get in the season, the more it's clear that it's Flemings. But that being said, I still think you can count on Houston kind of being a little bit discombobulated for 2 or 3 minute stretches. So if you do get an opportunity, let's say they open up this game 10-2, something like that, and you get a really nice number, get some nice points. This to me screams a one possession game one way or the other. So if you can get above one possession on a live number, I'm interested in doing that. And just from a pure watching standpoint, I can't wait to sit down and watch this game end to end because their first one was an absolute classic. Any other thoughts on this game and kind of the overall ceilings for these two teams?
Yeah, I think from a live betting perspective, Houston is so great. And I wrote this up when I had written up a guide for Action Network, and I broke down about 5 different games in a row where Houston forced their opponents into the deep end and just would not let them out for 8, 10, 12-minute stretches where they're holding these opponents to 6 or 8 points during that stretch. Just incredible defensive performance. The projected total on this one is 143, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Houston. Maybe they come out hot and they start 10-2, you force a quick timeout, and then Texas Tech rallies back, and you look up and there's only been 5 or 6 minutes played, and it's 14-13. And I'm going to jump in live. If I get a live total of 150 or higher, I'm going to dive in on the under there because the stretch is coming for both. McCaslin is going to have these guys ready to go defensively. Both these teams are good at forcing long stretches where the opponent just struggles. And Houston, they're an absolute top tier team. They have struggled, and it's been a problem. It hasn't been a problem in the win-loss column because these situations have manifested themselves while they've played Jackson State, New Orleans, Middle Tennessee, yada, yada, yada. But Houston has gone through numerous situations where they can't make open jumpers. They miss wide open, and these are wide open looks. And that's what Houston needs to start to do because they're finding in their offensive system that their guards are penetrating into the lane and they're kicking it out to the corner. Guys need to start making shots, and Houston will be very, very dangerous. And I'll be glad that I have that 17-1 natty ticket. Texas Tech, I think if they can put it all together and they can really keep the momentum going and play consistent on both ends of the floor, they've got playmakers that can create offensively. They've got guys that have an impact defensively. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if these two teams end up playing each other, certainly in the Big 12 championship tournament, but also in March. I think these two teams can really be in the mix to make a deep postseason run. It wouldn't surprise me if either one of these teams are one of the last 8 standing.
Now, before we get out of here, we're going to put together our 2 favorite plays in a little 2-leg parlay. I'm going to go with Texas Tech. I'm going to say the money line to get us closer to, let's call it plus 270. What is going to be your addition here from your slate?
Yeah, I mean, I really like South Alabama unders, and I just like the way that Richie Riley has this team playing defensively. They do not get sped up. They don't make a lot of mistakes defensively, and they don't put their opponents in situations where it's going to be easy to operate offensively. And I don't think James Madison is going to be able to exploit that. So let's go South Alabama, James Madison under. Projected totals 142.5, but anything 139.5 or higher, we're going to dive in on the under. My favorite play of the ones we've talked about.
That'll do it for today's episode of the Big Bets on Campus podcast. A special shout out to my man Detlef Schrip, aka Duck. We really need those 5-star reviews. I'm updating the Apple reviews. We're trying to give away a futures ticket here. It could be a Texas Tech, it could be a Houston. Throw us a 5-star rating and review, and we're going to give it a free parlay or future ticket. Either one, your choice. Just go ahead and give us a little bit of love there in the ratings community. We've also got some big news. BBOC is bringing back our weekend preview series. That's going to be with Stuckey hosting, Greg Waddell and Jim Root. So those are going to hit your podcast feed on Friday mornings with a closer look at the full Saturday slate. We're also going to have our live Saturday show coming back to YouTube in the coming weeks. So we're going to have you covered all week long with College Hoops episodes, 3 episodes looking at the early, mid, and weekend slates. As always, best of luck with all your bets. Another special thanks to my man Duck, and we'll catch you next time here at the Big Bets on Campus podcast.